I used to think I understood the value of money, until I realized the real value is knowing how to protect it, especially from those who share your last name. My name is Emma Harrington. I'm 35 years old, currently living in Seattle. To outsiders, my family looked like the textbook version of American middle-class respectability. My dad used to be a civil attorney, my mom retired after 30 years as a librarian, and my younger brother, Tyler, was, as my mom always put it, full of potential but just hasn't found the right opportunity. I'm the eldest child, responsible and career-driven, working as a financial advisor for an independent investment firm. According to my father, I'm too rational to be empathetic. 6 months ago, my grandmother, Margaret Harrington, passed away at the age of 86. She was the last in our family to hold on to an old-world way of living, graceful, disciplined, and sharp enough to slice through silence. In her younger days, she ran a small jewelry shop in Spokane, and through sheer grit, she built a respectable fortune. She wasn't one for hugs or gentle words, but to me, she was the only one in our family who truly listened. I'll never forget those afternoons spent learning to read financial reports beside her, or the way she taught me to judge a diamond's clarity under natural light. After the funeral, her personal attorney, Mr. Davis Keller, called me into his office in Capitol Hill. Sitting in that dark leather chair, staring out at the gray Seattle sky in the middle of winter, I had no clue what was about to unfold. But when Mr. Keller opened the estate documents, I nearly stopped breathing. Grandma Margaret had left me the family property in Chelan, a vintage wooden house overlooking the lake, where we had celebrated Thanksgiving for over 3 decades. Along with that came an investment portfolio worth nearly $1.8 million and her prized collection of rare jewelry, including the sapphire necklace she wore every Christmas. My parents were left with a $50,000 cash sum to enjoy their retirement, and Tyler was granted access to a restricted trust, usable only for education or investments in pre-audited businesses. I remember their expressions vividly, my mother frozen like she'd been struck by lightning, and Tyler grinding his teeth so hard I thought he might shatter the glass in front of him. "This cannot be what my mother intended," my mom said, voice sharp as wire. Keller replied calmly, "Mrs. Harrington updated her will 3 times in the past 2 years. Each time she confirmed this was her final decision." I stayed silent the entire meeting, my face as composed as I could manage. But inside I understood. Grandma knew each of us far too well. What she left me wasn't just an inheritance, it was a mission and a warning. Back home, I sat in my study, staring at an old photo of her smiling faintly on the porch in Chelan, one fall afternoon. I remembered what she once told me when I was 16, after I presented my first personal balance sheet. Never hand assets to someone who doesn't know how to respect them. Especially the ones who only know how to spend, never build. She didn't say a name, but we both knew she meant Tyler. Tyler had been a walking storm for years. He dropped out in his second year of college, bouncing from one flashy startup idea to another, each more unrealistic than the last. One was a 100% organic coffee shop in Bellingham. Another, a baffling blockchain platform. Every failure ended the same way, my parents bailing him out, repeating how he just needs one more chance. Meanwhile, I built my investment firm from scratch, hired my own research team, and last year made the 40 under 40 list in Invest Northwest magazine. I thought grandma's will would finally make them see things clearly. I was wrong. 3 weeks later, my mom called on a Wednesday night. Her voice calm, like she was asking about the weather. "Emma, can we all meet at your place this weekend? There's something important we need to discuss. About your grandmother's estate." My heart clenched. "You mean, the Chelan house? I'll explain when we're all there. But everyone needs to attend. I've invited Tyler too." I hung up without asking more. I already knew what was coming. And I wasn't about to let them take away what Grandma entrusted to me. Not again. I couldn't even count how many family meetings had ended with one purpose: get money for Tyler. No discussion, no debate. My mom would sigh, rubbing her wrist like she carried the weight of the world. My dad would stare at the floor, voice cracking as he muttered, "He just needs a little stepping stone, Emma." That stepping stone once cost me my college fund. At 19, I was working part-time, saving every penny from my scholarship to pay for my first semester at UCLA. Then one August morning, my mom said, Tyler was scammed in an investment deal. He needs $15,000 or he's getting sued. They took my tuition without even asking. I did my first year online while juggling multiple jobs to make ends meet. That winter, when I earned top grades, my mom simply said, "Your brother's under so much pressure he couldn't even come home for the holidays." No one ever threw a party for my achievements. No one acknowledged the nights I studied past 3 a.m. running financial simulations. But if Tyler made it through a week without causing chaos, the whole family called it a major breakthrough. My dad used to be a man of principles. But ever since Tyler hit adulthood, those principles fell off like dry leaves in the wind. Each time Tyler got into debt, Dad would negotiate with banks, taking out more loans to cover old ones. He called it an investment in our family's future. Of course, our family never included me. Tyler's 33 now and has never held a job for more than 8 months. He once called himself a creative entrepreneur, selling custom hoodies online. The website was built by an Indian freelancer. The capital? Borrowed from our parents. 3 months in, all the stock molded because, surprise, Tyler forgot to rent a climate-controlled storage unit. These disasters happened so often I stopped remembering the details. But what I could never accept wasn't just the money wasted, it was how they looked at me when I said no. "You never share with your brother. You're too cold, Emma. Families aren't about spreadsheets. He's weaker. You should be the one to reach out." One afternoon, after I paid off nearly $4,000 in hospital bills for my mom, I asked, "What if I was the weak one? If I lost my job, would you hold a family meeting to cover my rent?" She went silent, then turned to pour her tea without even glancing my way. Tyler's been married twice. Both ended in wreckage. The first wife left a note, "I refuse to be his mother anymore." The second had a miscarriage during one of his gambling spirals. My mom never mentioned the cause, just called it too much stress for the baby to stay. I don't hate Tyler. But I won't stand by while my family twists the meaning of love just to shield repeated failures. That night, I sat in the kitchen, warm light spilling across Grandma Margaret's old financial plans. I opened a folder of handwritten letters she'd sent me during college. Pale green ink, delicate script. Assets should never go to those who can't hold them. Blood doesn't give anyone the right to destroy. I gripped the edge of the paper. The upcoming family meeting would be theater. My mom would cry. My dad would preach about togetherness. And Tyler, he'd look at me like I was just another asset waiting to be claimed. I sat there, staring at the map of the Chelan region, where my grandmother's house waited to be restored. It wasn't just property. It was a witness to 4 generations of women in my family. The place where my grandmother was born, where my mother got married, where I once ran barefoot through apple groves as a little girl. And I swore I would not let them turn it into collateral for bottomless mistakes. I arrived at my mother's house at exactly 3 o'clock on Sunday afternoon, just like her message had asked. The front lawn was trimmed more precisely than usual. The lavender bushes lining the walkway smelled like they'd been sprayed with artificial polish. The living room windows were open, white curtains fluttering in the breeze. If I hadn't known better, I might have believed this was just a regular family get-together. Tyler parked right before me, his old black Dodge Charger with the front fender still dented. He wore a denim jacket and sunglasses, stepping out with that swagger like he was heading into a board meeting. "Emma," Tyler nodded, not even a trace of a smile. "I'm guessing you already know what this is about." I didn't answer. I walked straight through the front door. The living room was arranged with suspicious neatness. My father sat in his recliner, a stack of documents clipped into a brown leather folder laid out on the table. My mother held a teapot, her face overly gentle, like she was preparing to serve tea to a guest of honor instead of her own daughter. "You're here," she said, her voice soft as a feather. "Sit down, Emma. I brewed the oolong you like." Tyler flopped onto the couch, stretching his legs as if the room belonged to him. I chose the single armchair across from him, sitting upright, hands resting on the document folder I brought. No one noticed the folder, but they would soon enough. My father spoke first, as always. "Today we need to discuss an important matter related to your grandmother Margaret's estate." I tilted my head slightly, saying nothing. He opened the folder and pulled out a printed sheet, sliding it toward me. "We've decided to establish a family trust. The house in Chelan, the investment portfolio, the jewelry collection. It'll all be transferred to the trust. Your mother and I will act as co-trustees to ensure it's used appropriately. For what specifically? I asked, voice calm. To begin with, my mother cut in, will help Tyler resolve his current financial issues. After that, we'll preserve the house as per your grandmother's wishes. And the rest will be managed collectively to serve family needs in the future. I didn't need more details to translate. Financial issues meant mountains of debt, and serve family needs meant draining every last cent. How much? I asked, eyes locked on Tyler. What do you mean? Tyler tilted his head. The total amount of debt you're in. I don't like vague words like issues or pressure. I'm asking for a number. He pressed his lips together, glancing at our parents. My mother tightened her grip on the teacup. Money isn't the most important thing right now. $387,000, my father blurted out like dropping a hammer. I leaned back, feeling heat rise to my temples. There's the IRS, 2 banks, and, he paused, a few private lenders. I knew what that meant. Loan sharks. What's his plan to repay it? I asked, turning back to Tyler. You never understand, Tyler sneered. Nobody wants to be in this mess, Emma. You live a life programmed for control. I don't have that luxury. Luxury? I raised an eyebrow. I worked 2 jobs to keep my scholarship. I lived in an apartment with no AC for 3 years. I cooked 6-hour shifts at a Korean restaurant to save up for my first investment. That's what you call luxury? Tyler stood, hands on hips. I didn't come here for a morality lecture. My father stepped in. Emma, we don't have much time. If we don't resolve this soon, things could get dangerous. These lenders don't wait. I nodded. Then I unzipped my folder and laid out a copy of the Chelan property map, the investment allocation, and finally, a memo from my personal attorney. I know exactly what you're trying to do. I've seen the unusual transactions from the fund account. I know Mom contacted a broker about appraising the house. As for Tyler, I have photos of him at Green Ridge Casino just last week. He owes a man named Marcus Vallon, a known loan shark in Tacoma. I'm not guessing. I'm confirming. Silence blanketed the room. Tyler turned pale. I've already transferred everything, real estate, investments, jewelry, into an irrevocable trust. I am the sole trustee and beneficiary. No one else has access. My mother stammered, Emma, you can't. This is supposed to be a family matter. No, I cut her off. This is grandmother's legacy. And she left it to me because she knew a day like this would come. Tyler slammed his fist on the table. So you're just going to let me die? I stood, collecting the papers. I'm not letting you die. I'm just done cleaning up your mess. No one said a word as I opened the door and walked out. Behind me, I heard my mother sobbing, her voice fractured. My father stayed quiet while Tyler shouted something crude I didn't bother to catch. Driving home, I didn't think about the money. I thought about something else. Did anyone in this family ever truly see me as one of their own? Or just the shield they pulled out when disaster came knocking? The next day, I got an anonymous email. Subject line, Emma, they're planning something behind your back. Attached was a screenshot of an email exchange between my mother and an attorney named Howard Winslow, a partner at a small firm in Bellevue. The message was cold and surgical. If Emma insists on holding the private trust, we'll proceed with Plan B as agreed. I can prepare documents to petition the court to challenge the will, citing diminished capacity. This will pressure her to negotiate. I didn't need to guess who sent it. Had to be Rachel, my mother's former secretary, who once helped me organize hospital paperwork. She had whispered once when I stopped by, "You're not like them, Emma. The way you look people in the eye, it scares liars." I thought she was just being polite. Clearly, I underestimated how loyalty grows in the shadow of disrespect. I sat frozen at my screen. Plan B. They were really willing to drag me into court, defame my grandmother's memory just to cover Tyler's debts. That night, I went to my mother's house. They didn't know I'd read their correspondence. I didn't knock. I used the old key I still had in my wallet, the one she never asked me to return because you're still our daughter. Why would we need to take that from you? They weren't home. I knew their schedule by heart. Wednesday, 6:30 p.m., they always went to Pastor Abel's for a faith-based financial recovery group. It was hosted by a Christian credit counseling team up north in Seattle. In theory at least, In reality, it was where my mother usually fished for tips on handling unusual financial situations. My father's study was at the end of the hallway on the ground floor. The door wasn't locked. The filing cabinet was still in its usual spot, combination lock and all, but I'd once seen him key in the code. My grandparents' wedding date. December 4th, 1957. The lock clicked open like the crack of a broken watch hand. Inside, 3 folders, a portable hard drive, and a brown leather notebook. I opened the notebook. One section was marked with a red paper clip. The page read, Consolidated Trust, Emergency Option. Below was a mock asset allocation. The Chelan house projected to sell at $1.45 million, the investment portfolio split 3 ways, and the jewelry marked as, to be converted into movable assets for ease of handling in case of legal ambiguity. I kept flipping until I found a printed copy of an email from my father to Attorney Winslow, subject line, Petition to initiate court intervention if Emma refuses. I took pictures of everything with my phone. Clean, no trace. Then I placed everything back exactly where it had been. On the way out, I stopped by the tea cabinet, grabbed the exact oolong tin my mom always used to serve me. Inside that drawer, I stashed a USB with copies of every document related to Grandmother Margaret's trust, just in case they tried to erase the trail. On the way home, I called Dean Spalding, an estate attorney I'd worked with when I founded my investment firm 3 years ago. Dean wasn't the type to be easily rattled. He used to be a tax prosecutor in California before switching to civil law. Emma, he said after picking up. Long time no hear. What's got you calling me at 8:30 p.m.? I need urgent counsel on an inheritance case that may be getting manipulated. They might sue, claiming diminished capacity of the grantor. Do you have any recordings? No. But I have all internal emails and the full playbook for how they plan to reverse the trust. Dean was quiet for a few seconds. Tomorrow. My office, 23rd floor, Rainer Pacific Tower. When I arrived, Dean was already there, coffee steaming on the desk, documents lined up. I handed him the printouts and photo files. He didn't say a word for 10 minutes, just read, then leaned back and closed the folder. They're planning to sue, but they don't have standing. The will was notarized 3 times, the last in the presence of a geriatric physician confirming full cognitive capacity. You also have a handwritten letter from your grandmother outlining her intentions. I need to be sure they can't delay or freeze the trust. It's an irrevocable trust, Dean nodded. They can't touch it unilaterally. But if they want to get dirty, they might stir up the press, sling mud, try to rattle your public image. I smirked. Then they'll face the full truth, including Tyler's forged loan documents to pull money from a federal credit program back in 2020, and my parents refinancing the house 3 times behind each other's backs. I have the records. Dean looked at me more closely, his expression shifting slightly. Emma, you're preparing for war, aren't you? No, I said, pouring coffee from the glass carafe. I'm preparing to defend myself, the one way I was never allowed before, by speaking the whole truth. He didn't reply, just slid a file toward me. We'll respond legally by the book. But if they've got a plan C, I think it's time you call one more name. My brows lifted. Who? The only person Margaret ever trusted besides you, Glenn Hartford. Her former chief accountant of over 20 years. He's retired now, still lives on Bainbridge Island. Call him. I believe your grandmother laid the groundwork long before she passed. I looked out the window. The city was draped in mist, thin as a winter breath. Out there, people were living in families that probably looked normal on the outside, while I was about to stand before a court and prove my own parents were willing to fabricate mental illness just to steal from the dead. I will see this through. Not for revenge, but so that no one ever again dares to trample on trust in the name of family. I went to see Avery Lang, an attorney who specializes in protective asset trusts. She used to be a federal prosecutor before opening her own firm in downtown Seattle, known for her precision and her ability to dismantle every legal stunt the other side could throw. I met her on a Friday afternoon, in an oak-paneled office where each curtain was drawn just enough, as if always waiting for a gust of wind to blow open someone's secret. After I finished explaining, Avery didn't ask a single question. She skimmed the documents, typed a few lines on her laptop, then spoke bluntly. We'll set up an irrevocable trust. You'll be both the grantor and the sole beneficiary. No one, not even your parents, can touch a cent of it without legal authorization from you. If they want to sue, let's see if they'll dare to challenge a trust fortified with 3 layers of legal shielding and an independent medical attestation. She paused for a beat, then added coldly, I've seen parents sue their children, siblings drag each other into court, even a wife sue her late husband's stepchild. But no one ever beats time and preparation. I nodded and pulled 3 envelopes from my bag. The property transfer documents for the Chelan estate, the investment portfolio records, and an appraisal of the family jewelry from Harrington Jewelers dated 14 years ago. Everything had been duplicated and preserved meticulously by Margaret, as if she'd anticipated every move they might make. We need to act fast, I said. The next family meeting is Monday morning. I want everything finalized before then. Avery checked her watch. We've got 68 hours. I'll need coordination with an independent asset appraiser, a notary experienced in estate certification, and a legal verifier for current ownership. Dean Spaulding will assist you, I replied. He's already handling the dispute case. She nodded. Good. Let's begin. From that evening until Sunday noon, I barely left Avery's office. We combed through every clause of the will, cross-checked each investment account ID, and ensured every license, title, and legal authority was properly transferred into the trust's name. I signed over 40 documents, each one a shield I built around everything my grandmother left behind. By midday Sunday, I personally visited the Queen and Branch Bank, where Margaret had stored the family heirloom jewelry in a safe deposit box. The manager gave me a wary look when he saw my name listed as the direct heir. I thought your grandmother left this part to the whole family? I'm the legal trustee. Here's the authorization copy. He examined it carefully, then nodded. I followed him into the secure vault, where fluorescent lights cast a ghostly hue on rows of steel drawers lined like a graveyard of memory. Box number 47 was placed before me. When I opened it, I almost lost my breath. Inside, alongside the known jewelry pieces, was a bundle wrapped in violet silk. I unwrapped it and found a dark leather notebook, the cover bearing her handwritten words. To Emma, when the time comes for you to choose to stand alone. I didn't open it yet. I packed the jewelry into a protective pouch, signed the receipt, and walked out of the bank. That afternoon, I delivered everything to the licensed appraiser Avery had designated, ensuring the values were officially recorded in the trust documentation. By Sunday night, in Avery's office, I signed the final document, the certificate establishing the irrevocable Margaret Harrington Legacy Trust, with the sole grantor and beneficiary being me, Emma Harrington. Initial assets: the Chelan estate valued at $1.48 million, an investment portfolio totaling $1.76 million, and the heirloom jewelry appraised at $230,000. From this point on, Avery said, her tone steady like a gatekeeper to the underworld, anyone who wants to touch a single dollar of this will have to get through 3 legal walls, 2 notarized affidavits, and 1 woman who's not afraid of public backlash, me. I left her office just before midnight. On the way home, I stopped beneath the Fremont Bridge. The Seattle skyline glowed like a current beneath glass, cold and beautiful. I pulled the leather notebook from my bag and opened to the page where Margaret had written. The first line read, "If you're reading this, it means you've chosen what's right over what's easy. Family isn't a place where you sacrifice your freedom and dignity. It's a place where you're free to be yourself." I closed the notebook, leaned my head back against the seat, and shut my eyes for a moment. Tomorrow morning, I'd walk into my mother's living room, with the entire family waiting, but I wouldn't have to back down. Not an inch. The air in my mother's living room thickened the moment I walked in. The walnut coffee table gleamed like a mirror under the ceiling lights. A vase of white peonies sat in the center, the kind my mother always chose when she wanted to appear gentle yet composed. My father wore a dark blue shirt, gray tie perfectly knotted. Tyler leaned sideways on the couch, ankle resting on one knee, tapping 2 fingers against a glass of water he hadn't touched. "Emma, have a seat," my mother said, her voice flat like a line rehearsed too many times. I set my bag on the side chair, kept my coat on. No one asked if I wanted anything to drink. They weren't here to welcome me. They were here to perform. "We want to talk as a family," my father began. "No lawyers, no threats. Just a conversation among people who love each other. Love, I repeated, tilting my head. That's interesting. My mother's hands clenched. Emma, we know what you did. You moved the assets into a personal trust. Don't you think that's a little selfish? Selfish, I echoed. For not letting Margaret's home be mortgaged off? For protecting the stock portfolio she left from being liquidated to pay off Tyler's debts? For honoring her final wishes, while the three of you twist them to your convenience. Tyler let out a dry laugh. You talk like some kind of saint. You never understood what family really means. I know exactly what family means. It's the place where I was forced into silence every time you lied. The place where I was told I was too strong to need help. The place where I became the backup plan for every one of Tyler's failures. My father cut in, his voice sharp as a scalpel. That's enough. We're not here to argue. We're here because this is an emergency. Your brother is in real danger, Emma. The kind of danger you don't want showing up at your doorstep. That's right, Tyler jumped in, his tone rough. If I don't pay $330,000 within the next 3 weeks, I'm getting yanked out of my car in the middle of the street. I'm not joking. So what do you want me to do? Take off the earrings my grandmother used to wear and pawn them for more time, for someone who's never kept a single promise. We just need you to sign this, my mother said, pulling out a stack of papers. Transfer the trust back into a family trust. Your father and I will be the trustees. Everything will be divided equally. Fair. I didn't touch the documents. Fair is a very flexible concept in the hands of people who would fake medical records to sue a dead woman for being mentally unfit. My mother's face paled. You don't have any proof of that. I opened my bag and took out a printed email from attorney Howard Winslow, the one they hired to draft the petition to overturn the will. No? Then what's this? You're going to tell me someone impersonated you and emailed your own lawyer about a plan B? Tyler jumped up, eyes bloodshot. You think you're smarter than all of us? You think some paperwork gives you the right to turn your back on this family? I stood, looking him straight in the eye. I'm not turning my back. I'm just done standing still while you stab me. My father clenched his jaw. You'll regret this. If you think the court will always take your side, you're wrong. Try me, I said. Let's show the judge the video of Margaret's final will update. The one I just got from the psychiatric clinic where she had her evaluations. She said it clearly. Emma is the only one who understands the value of this legacy. I don't want it sold or divided. It needs to be preserved, not spent. My mother burst into tears, sobbing like someone had turned on a faucet. You're so heartless. Your brother could die and you're still cold as stone. Tyler kicked the table, spilling the water glass across the floor. Quit acting, Mom. She doesn't care. Emma only sees dollar signs. I froze for a second, then turned to leave. At the door I stopped. I used to hope you'd understand. I thought if I was good enough, obedient enough, gave enough, you'd appreciate me. But no. The only thing you ever wanted was control, even if it meant tearing apart the last wishes of someone who's already gone. No one responded. I closed the door behind me. The sound of the wooden panel meeting the steel frame echoed like a gate I hadn't dared to shut, until now. It was cold outside. I pulled out my phone and texted Avery. Confirmed. They've officially raised the dispute. Prepare the next step. I sent it without hesitation. Because everything I needed to protect was already secure. And everything they were trying to claw back was never theirs to begin with. I wasn't surprised when Uncle Alan called just a few hours after I left my mother's house. Emma, his raspy voice came through the phone, I think you should come to my office. There are some things you need to hear, about Richard, about Martha, and about Tyler. Uncle Alan was my father's youngest brother, the only one in the family who never played emotional chess. He lived quietly in Kirkland, had worked as a credit director at a commercial bank before retiring early to care for his wife with Parkinson's. When I was a kid, I spent summer breaks at his house, where I first learned how to read financial reports instead of watching cartoons like other kids. I went over that afternoon. He'd already laid out printouts, old papers, and a tin of oatmeal cookies. My favorite, the ones his wife used to bake for me. I'm not here to interfere, he began, but I've been watching. I've seen you get pushed into being the one who cleans up after everyone else, without anyone ever calling it sacrifice. I stayed silent. He turned the first page of the folder and pointed to a chart of mortgage rates. Richard and Martha's house. They've refinanced it twice in the past 4 years. Outstanding debt now is $620,000, nearly the full market value of the home. I frowned. I thought they paid most of it off back in 2015? They borrowed again, to bail out Tyler. Twice. Once for losses from that bar venture, once for a federal gambling fine. But that's not all. He flipped to the second folder. Credit cards. 6 of them. Total balance. Over $140,000. I leaned back, the air leaving my chest like I'd been deflated. And one more thing, he said slowly. They cashed out the remaining balance of their 401k last year. Your mother has no retirement left. Your father is clinging to appearances, doing freelance consulting, but his old law firm quietly removed him from their system 3 months ago. They plan to rely entirely on Grandma's estate, I said. He nodded. They thought you'd cave. They assumed whoever held the keys would also hold compassion. But Emma, compassion doesn't mean giving up your dignity. I thanked him, took all the documents, and scheduled a follow-up for the next morning. A meeting I intended to use to reset the board entirely. I contacted Avery and Dean. Both would attend the second meeting, this time at Avery's law firm, 18th floor conference room with glass walls facing Lake Union. When my parents and Tyler arrived, their energy had shifted. My mother wore sunglasses to hide swollen eyes. My father looked drawn and exhausted. Tyler came in a gray hoodie, shoulders slumped like someone whose pride had been clipped. Uncle Alan was already seated beside me, a thick folder resting under his hand. Avery began, crisp and clear. Before we proceed, let me state for the record. Everyone here understands this is not a negotiation for access to the trust. The trust is established, irrevocable and non-transferable. Emma is the sole beneficiary, protected under both federal and state law. My mother inhaled sharply, ready to object, but my father raised a hand to stop her. I'm here, I said, not to lecture you or prove that I'm stronger. I'm here because there are truths that need to be said, clearly once and for all. I opened the folder. I know about the mortgage. I know about the debt. I know the retirement accounts are gone. I know the law firm deactivated Dad's login. My father's face tightened. My mother turned away. Tyler kept staring at the floor. And I also know this, I continued, slow and steady. If I do nothing, my parents will lose their house, Tyler could end up hurt, and Grandma's name will be dragged through the lawsuit you were preparing. Silence. The wind brushed softly through the sheer curtain behind me, cold as metal. I have 3 conditions, I said. Not a negotiation, just the only option if you still consider me part of this family. First, I turned to Tyler, you check into a gambling rehab center. Full program. I'll cover the cost from my personal funds, not the trust. If you walk out, all support ends. Tyler looked up, eyes sunken. How long? At least 60 days inpatient. Then outpatient support if you show real progress. The program's ready next week, Avery already confirmed. Second, I looked at my parents. You'll meet with a financial counselor I choose. No new loans. No opening joint accounts under my name. I'll help restructure the debt, renegotiate the mortgage, and assist in finding a smaller place. If you're willing to step down from this fantasy that you're still upper middle class. My mother began to cry. But this time I didn't lean down to comfort her. Third, I placed my hand on the table. Any debt I help pay must be verified with documentation. No invoice, no money. No secrets. No tricks. If I catch one lie, this conversation ends permanently. No one spoke for what felt like 2 minutes, each second dropping like a stone into a deep well. Finally, Tyler nodded slightly. I'll go to treatment, he said, his voice like gravel scraping wood. I don't know if I deserve help, but if you're willing, I won't say no. My mother let out a sharp sob. My father closed his eyes quietly, like a man waking up from a dream he'd clung to for too long. Avery stood. We'll draft a memorandum outlining this agreement. No legal obligations beyond good faith and moral commitment. But if anyone breaks it, we're not obligated to continue. I left the conference room last. The Seattle sky was gray, early spring rain dotting the glass. I stood in the elevator, not lighter, not heavier, but different. because I wasn't walking out of my family's trenches alone anymore. 6 months passed. I was standing on the porch of the cabin in Chelan, holding a mug of hot coffee, eyes following the still lake reflecting patches of gray-blue autumn sky. The house Grandma Margaret left me was fully renovated now. New roof, full insulation system, the old wooden window frames preserved but fitted with double-pane glass. The backyard still had the apple trees she planted, now tended regularly by a local gardening crew. I hadn't changed the house's essence. I just brought it back to what it was always meant to be, what had been buried under dust and deception for years. My phone buzzed. A message from the Behavioral Recovery Center in Spokane. The update from Tyler's supervisor read: Tyler Harrington has completed week 12 of outpatient care. He will be evaluated next week for transition into periodic support. I sat down on the rocking chair and typed back, "Thank you. I'll attend the next session." In the past 6 months, Tyler had followed the program like someone truly wanting change. No longer the arrogant guy in fake designer gear, he now worked delivery for a building supply store. No glamour, no pressure, just honest work he could complete each day without temptation. The last time I saw him, the sarcasm in his eyes when I spoke was gone. Replaced with silence, sometimes louder than apology. As for my parents, they sold the Ballard house 2 months ago. They moved into a 2-bedroom apartment near the old church, where my mother now volunteers with a local financial aid group. She hasn't let go of her need to control everything, but at least now she doesn't control me. My father works part-time at a small law firm, mostly handling administrative paperwork and real estate contracts. It doesn't pay much, but it covers bills and preserves what pride he has left. Our phone calls are still tense, but at least the silence between meetings no longer feels like a stone on my chest. I don't hope for Hallmark family warmth. I just hope no one has to protect themselves the way I once had to. In Grandma Margaret's reading room, I kept every bookshelf and every little tin of tea she once used. On the table by the window sat her old wooden box, with the emerald bracelet she wore on special occasions. The last time I opened that box, a small note fell out, her handwriting still steady. "Emma, if you're still wondering whether you did the right thing, just look around. Assets can be passed down. But character only stays if you know how to say no when everyone expects you to bow." I spent years believing that if I gave more, my family would love me more. But respect doesn't come from bending, it comes from standing firm. That evening, Tyler called. "You're at Chelan?" he asked, voice a little hesitant. "Yeah. The back garden's blooming late. That cherry tree I thought died last year, it made it." Silence. Then he spoke softly, "If it weren't for you, I don't think I'd still be alive to talk on the phone." I didn't answer right away. A breeze stirred the wind chime on the porch. "You're trying to live right, Tyler," I said. "The rest is up to you." "Not me." "I know. But thank you for not giving up on me." We ended the call in silence. No need for goodbyes. Maybe for the first time that silence actually meant kindness. Late at night, I stepped out into the backyard. The moon hadn't risen yet, but the light from the porch was enough to illuminate the newly laid wooden deck. I sat down on the steps, took out Grandma's old leather journal and flipped to the last page. There she had written in a firmer hand than usual, "If family is where we're hurt, then boundaries are what help us stay ourselves without losing them completely. Remember, no one can inherit character on your behalf." I closed the journal. In the cool mountain air of Chelan, I no longer felt heavy. I wasn't just protecting her assets. I was holding on to what she most wanted me to receive. The choice to defend what's right, even when facing the people you once loved the most. Emma's story shows that love doesn't mean surrender, and family should never be where trust is drained. When pushed to the edge, she didn't choose silence, she chose boundaries. Not to shut her loved ones out, but to save herself and the values worth preserving. Between blood ties and inherited wealth, Emma didn't just protect what her grandmother entrusted to her. She reclaimed the right to live by her own truth, the most precious inheritance no one can ever take. What do you think about Emma's choice? Would you have the courage to set boundaries with your own family? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to follow the channel for more powerful stories about family and the values that shape our lives.